Okay, time for some more Factorio. So, big changes since the last recording. Um, you'll notice more red. I decided that not being able to run my science at 90 per minute was not acceptable. So I thought, well, let's increase our steel. So I told my bots to upgrade my steel line, and in the process I also decided to finish upgrading the plastic. So steel and plastic are now red lines, and we can see on the zoomed out view here that yes, indeed, those are all red. You'll notice that the factory is not moving at the moment. Oh, these haven't been upgraded, so my plastic is not completely red yet. I'm betting that I don't have coverage, and that is true. I do not have complete coverage yet. So I'm going to fix that. The bots will be by to finish upgrading. But aside from that, steel and plastic are red. So this array can now output to its rated limits. I believe that is set properly. In terms of fast transport belts, our inputs are 1 from the right and output 2 to the left. That's correct. So the other thing is the steel. This is all red going back up into here. And I made the smelters all red. And then I doubled the number of smelters. And that can go away. I wound up with a bonus RoboPort. So this whole smelter array now has 5 red belts of iron ore coming in, and it's turning out 1 red belt of steel plate. Now that does mean, I moved all this over somewhat, that all of my inputs now have to be red all the way out through the end of the splitters. And these 4 to 4s are part of the big 16 to 16 splitter, so they have to be red. But we still only have 16 yellow lines coming in. So the 16 yellow lines are split across 16 red lines. So if we are not using all of it here, so normally it'll try to balance it all out. So everybody's going to get a yellow belt. Well, these 3 don't go anywhere, so there's going to be a couple of yellow belts that are left over, and some of these are short, so maybe it isn't quite there. One thing or another, this should balance out. But the key thing is that if these guys aren't moving, and if I'm not using up all of the iron that I can smelt, which would be 8 yellow lines of copper, then anything above the 5 yellow lines normally allocated to steel can go up to as high as 5 red. So this can go as high as a red belt. Not always going to be there, but it can go that high if I need it and I'm not using the iron. So got that done, and I thought, well, what's the next thing? The next thing is to start putting modules in, because I am going to need to use modules when I'm smelting for the larger base. So get some modules going in. For now, I'm just doing this, which is a robot-based build. This build is capable of handling up to, items per minute, 2.5 speed module 3s per minute. That's kind of slow. Fortunately, I can let the base run at high speed, and I did. We have the same build for productivity modules. Again, that's 2.5 per minute. These are production levels I would expect out of a mall. The scale is larger than you would expect out. Normally in a mall you'd have one of each. And at one of each, this would be one of these every 4 minutes. That's not good. Oh, and I added building assembly machines out here. It's easier to add this kind of request in all the items, build the stuff, and send it back out. It's easier to add those than to try to tack on more things to the end of the mall. So this may be as big as the mall ever gets. In fact, I think I'm going to put a flag in the ground right now and say this is as big as I will make it. There are some things that aren't being built yet. I believe that's Spidertron. This mall dates from the time when Catherine was just starting to build Spidertrons. And I believe this was done in a MMO environment. So building Spidertrons for everybody, it's a good thing. So these are automated. This is good. And now we see what this is. I was wondering what this pattern was. It didn't make sense until I saw it built. It's fish. Because this is the requester chest for fish. It says, if there's any fish that are picked up, please bring them to me. Cool. Now, we get fish by fishing in the lakes, and we get fish by sending white science in a rocket. So if you send up a rocket with 100 white science, you will get back 100 fish. If you send a rocket with a satellite, you'll get back 1,000 white science. So what we're going to want to do is, in amongst all of the rockets that we send up, once in a while we're going to send up a rocket with some white science, and it's going to come back and give us some fish so that we can make the Spidertrons, which require a fish. I'm guessing that that's their neural network that they use for controlling the Spidertron. So what else did I do? Oh, I think the power going from 2 to 5 was recent. This has actually doubled the power because previously we also had this one down here. So we had 3, we are now at 6. I increased the amount of solid fuel, so we are now producing 2 red belts, which have, let's see, did we actually produce that much? Fast transport belt. We potentially, if we have the petroleum, can produce 2 full belts of solid fuel. And we see right now that the factory being basically idle, we're ticking away, and this much of our production of solid fuel is going. We're only using it for power. What I want to do eventually is shift all of our smelting over to using solid fuel, or maybe I'll just go directly to electric smelting if we get the power going. Zooming back out. What's the next thing to look at? Oh, I mentioned that I was doing modules. I have stamped down the moduled build. So these guys are now going to be fully operational with their 2 speed modules per beacon, and that should be productivity modules in there. Let's go visit it. So these are not moduled, and I thought that the blueprint had them moduled. So let's get out the blueprint again. Double moduled. So the blueprint has productivity modules in there. And I noticed that we are not getting productivity modules in there. So I'm just going to have to do this manually. So we're going to request in the productivity modules, and I will just stripe them in on my own. Oh, we already have requests for them. Fine. How many of them do we need? Well, we need 3 for each one of those. And we need 3 for each one of those. So 3 per lab plus 3 per oil refinery. 93 times 3, that's about 300 of those. I'm not going to stand here and wait for those to be built. But what I can do is I can pick them up here. And then drop them back down again. So what we want to pick up are the oil refineries and the chemical plants. And the reason I'm doing this is so that when I stamp them back down, they will be stamped down with a demand to put the productivity modules in. Now I actually have some extra things I've added. I put in some pumps out here, so I can't just stamp it down. I have to shift stamp. But there we see that the request now has the modules. And that will be able to build. And of the 300 modules that I need, I believe I have 50. And at 2.5 per minute, the 250 of them is 100 minutes. So if I could run it 100 to 1, that would be a minute. I am actually getting closer to 15 to 1 or 20 to 1 at the best. So 150, 20 minute, 20x, 7 call. I would say that I will have to leave this running at top speed for anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes to get those modules built and installed. Yeah. But once I've done that, see, I've already got the modules down here. Oh, wait a minute. One of these required 31 times 3 is 90. Okay, so apparently I did 100 of them because I did manage to put modules in. See, we've got them. So this guy, items per second. So I'm turning out 1.6667.9 1600. So multiply that by 3, that's 5. So the total grid is going to be doing 5,000 petroleum per second. Now pumps can pump up to 12,000. So we're still able to pump this with one pump. And I think pipes can handle that rate, but we may need to put more pumps in line. Otherwise our petroleum rate will drop off. And in fact, once we start drawing our liquids through the pipes out here, I anticipate that we will need periodic pumping stations to keep the flow going. We'll find that out as we start to build things, and we can't build them because we don't have enough petroleum flowing. Now up here, we are not actually building things because we don't need them. However, when this cranks up, items per second, this will require 640 per second out of the 5,000 per second. So our plastic could hit full rate. Our sulfur will require 600. So this can hit full rate without really stressing our petroleum. What else are we building? We're also building... Oh, this line is dead because I changed my petroleum line so that we have this fluid bus branch coming north, and these no longer do anything. So this column is just a collector. This is so that all of my refineries could play into this bank of pumps, which pressurize the downstream. And now the downstream bus can come in here and go up. Now I did mess up because while the petroleum is going up, I believe that the water and the acid, yeah, the acid is coming down. The acid needs to actually be going up. So let's put our acid in, say here. No, can't put it in there. We could put it either to the left. Nope, can't put it in there. Have to put it in here. So there's going to be our acid collector. Let's run this up to where the acid is. We'll use this line to bring the acid down. There. Once we've done that, we can now sever this link. And this would become bringing acid up if we needed to bring acid up, which we do not. So now our acid's coming down here, and we can see our total acid production and consumption rate right here in this pump. So we're pumping 1 per second, and our input is full, so we are producing more than we need, and our output is full, so we are keeping our downstream pressurized. Water. Are we bringing water down or up? Let's take a look. Where is water going? Water comes from here. I believe this is water heading upwards, but I'm not absolutely sure. It is heading downwards because here is the water supply for the sulfur coming in from the right. I'm going to sever that. Because we do not want to have these pipes with some of them going north and some of them going south. I've done that before, and what you end up doing is that somebody messes up and suddenly you have people not being clear on where things come from, and then you get a pump in backwards, and suddenly a whole section of your factory doesn't have a fluid that it wants. And there we go. So this is fluids going north into whatever I've done up here. Currently all we need is petroleum, so petroleum is the only one that's going to be flowing. Everybody else is basically dead. Now I will put those in. Well, my robots will put those in. Water. It would be cool. Well, not just cool, we do need to have water on the bus. Now currently, I believe I set it up so that we have one water coming in here. Yeah, I even annotated it. So we've got 1200 water per second being pumped here when we're cranked up. And I computed it out. Well, these guys require water per second. Water just seems to have changed. This used to be 100 water per second. Now it's 555 per second. So, yeah. When I put the beacons in, this changed my water requirements. So just these guys alone require more water than one pump can handle. So this much of the refinery requires a pump and a half. So we are going to have essentially 2 pumps for each of these. And we're going to have to connect the right-hand side because there's a little bit of excess water from the top that will feed in and pick up some of the slack from the bottom, which means we no longer have central water. So let's get rid of this and rework the water. Okay. Yeah. I don't always do annotations like this, but in this case it came in handy because it reminded me that I needed to rework my computations. So going back to here. In fact, I'm going to make this a little fancier because this is really important. I want to get this to be a nice looking thing. What if I clip the corners? Is this... Oh, that's not bad. So there's my label, and let's bring it away from the red. Oh, come on. I want to get also the ground stuff. I have to do the whole thing like that? Yes, I do. We're going to move the whole thing to the left one. Here. Okay, so concrete. Here and here and here. Here. There. Now these are wrong. Do I want to correct it or do I want to get rid of it? First of all, it's going to be 4 digits now. And this is completely wrong. So what is my total water requirement for the refineries? This is now 555. So actually I don't require this. I'll just leave a leading blank. No, I won't. So we're going to get 1200 coming in here. Oh, and I don't want it in line because this doesn't fit. I will put it down here. Yeah, okay. That'll make it kind of clear what's going on. Okay. My need to keep my text separate from the rest of this thing is going to be my downfall. I can already tell. Yeah, putting that vertically isn't going to work out. That's totally unreadable. What I can do is put it down here. Like that. And how about we extend our RoboPort coverage. Oh, come on. Like that. Cool. Now down here, this guy is 1282, call it 1282. And it's actually on this line because we bring everything down to here. So this is correct. But what I want to do is start collecting my stuff just outside these boundaries. Okay, we'll figure out that water in a second. So here we're going to need to put in some water, like that. Now here I would like to bring this in as far down below this as we are above it. I use a lot of stuff like this. Yes, it is cheaper to put in normal straight pipes, but you can't walk through them. And even if it just saves you having to walk a couple of steps one way or the other, it still means that it's convenient. Okay, so this is enough water so that our first refinery can now crack off at speed. This also means that I have taken this space up for this. I hadn't thought about this, but there is going to be a challenge getting the water through my steam plants here, and it might be better if I just arrange for all 6 water lines to be up here. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and plant that and start clearing this area out. And we're going to need 6 pumps over on the right here somewhere. Well, you know, I think what I may do is put in some landfill. I don't think I have ever put landfill in, much less put it on the bus. So let's see, can I request in landfill? I cannot request in landfill. So let's go build some landfill. What does landfill require? Landfill requires stone and crafting time. Well, where do we have stone? We have quite a lot of stone coming in from the right and going in here. I have diverted some brick down this way. I could just as easily also divert some stone from here. And that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to divert some stone and put in some landfill up here. Because landfill is one of those bulk crap things. It's not really a bus thing. It's not really a mall thing. It's just kind of a... And for fun, how about I make the landfill as big as the rest of this? What if I do that much landfill? Okay, so first of all, what is required for landfill? How much is required for landfill? That's the important thing. So, normal transport belt. We can already see here that one machine will chew up 2 transport belts full of stone. Wow! I believe what that means is that unless we have the loaders, which were removed from the game very, 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 very early on, this means it's going to be impossible to keep one of these things fed. So let's take a look at stack inserters. So one stack inserter feeds this guy almost enough. So one red belt of stone feeds this guy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the other half of this, where's my red belt? Okay, there's a red belt. And all this to feed one machine. One machine is kind of special. So, where are we going to put it? What I really want is for this machine to have every opportunity to receive as much stone as it can. Well, that should really be enough. In fact, 2 stack inserters, that should do it. So we'll do that. Oh, we can build Spidertrons now. Yay! Why am I making this build stack inserters? He needs to build landfill. Oh, and I can also build blue belts. So we are going to hook this up to the logistic network, and we are going to cap ourselves at 1,000 landfill. I'm going to put a green thing here so that I'm going to request in landfill. So if we end up with landfill in any of our other chests, in fact, I'm going to request all of it in. So if we ever picked up any landfill or had any landfill accidentally appear in a yellow chest, that guarantees that it will be brought immediately here. This is not filling fast enough. Okay, we are feeding an entire red belt of stone into one assembling machine. This is glorious. So we are now making 90 per minute, is that right? Yeah. And we don't need to go any bigger because we don't really want to be eating 2 red belts of stone, do we? I mean, I could put splitters on these lines and say prioritize turning them into brick and send the excess down, but this is turning out a lot of landfill for me. So unless I go hog wild with landfill soon, I'm not going to need it. So let's just go down here and do what we planned, which is setting up some landfill so that our offshore pumps can go wild. I need enough offshore pumps. I need 6 offshore pumps, really. Which means that I need to go out and do 6, 8, 10. So there's our 6 pumps coming in. And now we're going to move this down here to label our pumping area. Okay, let's get our 6 lines going. This also means that I need to have all of those pipes coming up in this row, which means this needs to move. Let's put it in here like this. And this is actually wrong. Let's put the right number in. 1282. There we go. And now we're going to put in concrete. And the water lines. Notice that this water line is intersecting with this label. I'm going to just get rid of these labels. Getting this right is always a pain because I really want to get everything perfectly balanced, and you never get everything perfectly balanced. Okay. So now we have enough water coming in. If I've calculated it right. Oh, this number is now wrong. There. If I've calculated this right, we have enough water coming in to do it, but we do need to have the water from the top meet with the water in the bottom. So this needs to come around and talk to that. I think going outside the bounds is going to be undesirable. So let's take this down for the moment. I think I would rather have my water snake in between all of this than have it head out to the left as far as it went. There. So this guy has a extra that nobody else has. I'm going to move this away. We will worry about coverage in a moment. And here. Okay, so now they're the same. They no longer have the RoboPort in the extra bonus position. And I can work on getting my water. Shall I bring it up? That would be confusing. So let's see if I can bring it up here. So this vertical line, and that makes sense because that's where all the other waters come down. And there. And this guy needs to meet up with that. And that gets us a wraparound, so the excess water from the refineries can go down to these guys. Now, in practice, I don't think all of these light up at the same time, so we may never need that. But I do want to come back here when this is in full swing and see just exactly how well this does it. One way I could do that would be, of course, to add an enormous amount of storage tanks or drain the storage tanks or something. So now we can start from here and we can cut this, copy this much and drop that down and drop that down. And we are covered, I think. Let's make sure that we haven't severed our logistics network, so we're connected here. So that gives us a fully moduled refinery with speed modules in beacons and the productivity modules in the oil. So our whole shebang, according to max rate, will produce for us a little over 5,000 per second. Wow, that's a lot of petroleum. Now, I added this up in my head and it came up with 6,000. I am wondering if 6,000 was without the productivity modules. 5,000 is because it gets slower, but we're actually going to get more than that. So, yeah, as we reach up to that level, we're going to have to come back and look and see how we're doing here. But this is a lot of oil. So what is our goal here? Our goal is to be able to build the larger base. And, part of leaving this running to get the modules, we ended up researching everything except everything that did not need white science has been researched. So in theory, I could tear down all of my science from this build, and we do no more science until we have the larger base producing science. And the larger base would then have to include rockets to produce the white science. But I suspect that we are going to want to produce some white science in order to build things faster, to get the main base going, the super base going, just to make sure that we can build things in time, because this is, like, we saw how slow this was. We're going to need to do a fully module build of these guys. Now the thing is, these guys, when they crack off, they use quite a lot of resources. In fact, let's increase the number of modules we want. Oh goodness, are we out of build range here? We are, because I am headed south towards the starter base, which is not covered by robots. So what I really want to do is increase this so that instead of 50, we're going to bring ourselves up to 500 of each. And we can always lower this later. In fact, I have an idea. Oh, well, there's part of the problem, is that these are gated on the wrong thing. That may be why we had more productivity 3s than I thought we needed. Okay, there we go. Interesting. Are all of these? Oh, good lord, look at this. These are all gated on speed module less than 50. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to hook all of these guys, all these inserters up, and make it so that their condition is on a constant combinator and a decider. Well, let's do a decider first. So our condition here, decider combinators have to hook up to wires, which means I need to hook up a wire to a roboport to get the information out. Well, we could do that. So this roboport is going to read the network contents. And let me put up a power pole here. In fact, I'm going to put up a power pole. Let's do it down below so we can see what's going on here. There's our contents of our logistics network. And I'm going to put in this is going to be what I want. So this is productivity modules. We'll start it off with 50 so that nothing changes. And this guy is going to say that. Oh, right. Okay, this is going to have to be a little different. I forgot you couldn't do red minus green. So we're going to have the input is the number of productivity modules, and we are going to subtract our desired quantity, and the output is going to be green. So when, actually it's going to be red. So when red is greater than 0, greater than or equal to 0, we want these to stop. And currently our output signal is red because we have more than 50. What if we didn't have any? What if I said that? Okay, our output signal will be minus 50 in that case, so we're good. Now we join them vertically. Doesn't matter which one we join up. Check the condition. Red less than 0, we fire it. And I didn't get those striped across properly before I did this. So as long as red is negative, we can produce. Once we have enough, we're just going to shut off all the inserters. So if I pump that up to 500, there we go. And if I bring it back down to 50, there we go. So now I just want my inserters and my guy here. So we do not want to replace the requester chests or the buffer chests. Everything else can be just where it is. Whoops. Oh, and we do not want to replace the assembly machines. So we step this back to here. And the distances were different, so this did not copy. There we go. So now we are limiting ourselves to 50. That works. So now we want to step up to the plate. We're going to go to 500. So we should have 2.5 per second here, 2.5 per minute, 2.5 per minute there. And this should start drawing a whole bunch of resources from the bus. and I'm going to speed up time. You could tell that I have been doing a lot of speeding up of time on this. So as we start using processors, we're uncovering more and more of our processor array, and that will continue upwards until it hits our production levels. Meanwhile, our modules here are perfectly happy. At some point, we're going to slow down because we will now be hitting how much we can actually build. So we're still working through backlog here. Oh, there we go. And processor production is starting to fall off because its inputs are now not saturated. This is the pattern I saw earlier, where it washes back and forth, because when we build the green chips and the red chips, they are split. They go two ways. And as long as the other end of the bus has a backlog to chew on, we continue to make things. At some point, our production rates have dropped for long enough, the buffer is spent, and now it stops consuming all of the other things, and our production rates on red and green and red and blue chips can go back up. So I'm going to set game speed to 100, which is basically telling it go as fast as you can. Turn things off so that our UPS, as we've added things to the base, our UPS is starting to creep down. We're now running at just over 1,000 updates per second, which is still really good. Oh, bit of update at 2,000. So asking for 6,000 per second means basically we're getting out of our own way as much as possible. And we will get spurts that are faster. There we go. So there's our blue chip production now falling off. You notice that we are getting only, well, let's wait until this is actually set up the whole thing. What if we just look at the production rates on the 3 wides? So you notice we had a backlog of inputs here, which we chewed through, and now we have to catch up and we have to wait for production. Let's look at just the pattern on the red and blue chips. So the red chips are going to pulse up and down like that because they can be high while we have green chips coming in, but when that is happening, we're sending out a lot of blue chips, and the green chips are then being diverted down to building modules. And when our available buffer of green chips goes away, our blue chip production declines. So the red and green chips, there's less of a demand from the logistics network, so they start flowing back to the red and blue chip arrays. So we'll get this oscillation. Looks like it's about every 15 minutes. Originally, I actually had the outputs of the various processor board arrays, the red, green, and blue, set to prioritize sending them down toward the mall. And what would happen would be that the dips here were much sharper because we would not be getting half of our production. We would only be getting 0 of our production. So let's take a look at it. This is what it looks like now. Green chips are still being sharply prioritized to the right. And I mean sharply. I could change that up, but that's probably not a really good idea right now. Red chips, see that we're not producing red chips because we lack copper. Oh, that's the other thing, is that when the green chip array is moving at full speed, it's using 6 of our 8 lanes of copper just for green chips. So what this tells me is that when we start building the main base, we're going to start with obviously the mining and smelting, huge smelter arrays being fed by multiple mining patches using trains. But once we get it, our first thing is going to be to build a completely moduled green chip array that has its own sources for copper and iron, so that it doesn't saturate and doesn't starve the rest of the base. So this is what starvation looks like. So our red chip can go until the green starts slowing down. At some point, the green chip array will start slowing down. There it is. Oh, I take it back. Yeah, these are not as bad as they look. We are getting probably about half the copper we need. And the fact that these horizontal belts look like they're carrying a quarter belt, that's about right. They normally would carry half a belt. And that's down to a quarter belt because we're basically just chewing up all of our copper at this point. And one thing I notice here is that this lane is not getting consumed downstream. So it looks like I could rebalance up here to get this lane over, but in reality, there is nothing coming out on this side. So we are getting all of the remaining copper is being sent north. And if we were consuming copper down here, which we are not, then we would start to drain away but let's go back to looking at the 1 hour, let's look at 10-hour view. Oh, I was going to look at the balancing here. Red, you notice this is saying take our red production, split it half and half, and then split this half and half. So in theory, we're sending half of our total to the left and half of our total to the right. And I just realized that this is complete bichois the way this is working here, because I could do it so much easier. Let's fix our balancing of our chip outputs. Okay, first thing, green. I want basically this will always prioritize sending two yellow belts of green chips to the right. I do not want to do that. I want to split. So is there a way I can take my 4 lanes, which are not, well, let's balance them. I have 4 lanes here. I'd really like to balance them. Can I get away with removing that? I can. Let's put in a normal balancer. So we have 4 balanced lanes of green coming in from the top. And I'm doing all this on red belts. I want to potentially send some fraction of it to the right, potentially a quarter. Well, that comes back to here, output priority to the left, and putting a red belt on that. So this belt, up to all of this belt, could go out that direction. And I'm doing all this in red for the moment so that these two yellow belts could get reddish. And then over here I'm going to just put in another balancer. Like that. And the difference is that downstream has assumed that I am prioritizing to the center. So the modification of the balancer is going to be that prioritization. And I'm going to add another balance like that. So I believe that this will pretty much guarantee me that the two center lines are going to be full before the outside lines have much on them, aside from lane to lane stuff. And this lane, this particular short spur here, will be empty when this guy is accepting a full red belt. That said, we only have 4 yellow belts coming in, so these are going to be a yellow belt's worth. There we go. That assures somewhat more equitable division of the green chips. So red chips, we have 2 lines coming in, and I want to send half each way up to a yellow line each way. Well, this is total overkill. And because I like red, I'm just going to do that in red. Now, if I thought I was going to crank this up to full speed, I could make my red chips be on a red belt. And I may do that at some point. Well, hey, why not? Let's go ahead and do that. Do I have that upgrader? Yes, I do. So let's have my bots upgrade this line, and everything connecting through it or on top of it or whatever, do that whole thing in red. Now this will affect some things that cross that belt that aren't red. I can consider undoing. So yeah, all the places I'm tapping it are only going to get a yellow belt. That's fine. We can undo the things that are silly. There. So now, if our array here manages to ramp itself up to its full strength, which is fast transport belt, this whole thing only turns out 1 yellow belt total. That's not right. That can't be right. So we've got 140 machines, which is 120 red machines and 20 copper. Output is half of a fast transport belt. So the upgrade that I just asked for won't be important for that array. I guess we don't get a lot of yellow, a lot of red until we go with a moduled and beacon build. Well, that makes sense. The other thing is, how are we splitting this? Now this we are sending half of these one way and half the other. Doesn't matter right now because there is nothing to the left that uses blue chips yet. But yeah, this should put everything to rights. I'm going to speed up time to let the robots finish placing things. There we go, and we're all upgraded. We have a little bit of red being used here. What is even going on down here? We shouldn't be building any science right now. Oh, he's twitching because he's sending things out to the left, and he's twitching because he's sending things here because we are building some blue. We have the capacity to build 135 blue per minute. And we are currently 10-minute mark. Currently at some small fraction of it. I believe that's because that's all that we're actually using. Is that correct? Probably limited by our red chips, which are currently low. Because copper. Because, oh boy, we need a lot of more copper. So the question is, how are we doing here for outputs? I am looking for my chips. So we have 300 of the speed 3s. And I'm looking for the efficiency, the productivity 3s. Oh, good lord. Do I have any displays that I can build? Any display options? I normally will put in like LEDs or Dixie tubes or something. And I don't believe that I did that. Oh, I can build rocket silos now. So I think I'm going to put in a cut here. I'm going to go install Nixie tubes. And then we're going to start setting up some displays to show us what our actual storage quantities are, so we know how many of these we've built. But the other thing I wanted to look at was what have our fluids been doing during this time? Okay, so production of petroleum gas. That's leveled out at about 30K per minute. And I believe that's based on how much we're using. If I look over here, we're using 11K per minute. So we are 11K per minute average. So over the last hour, we are producing exactly what we are using. That makes sense. And this means that either we're full or empty. We are full, which means we are not running these at capacity. Well, duh. We are not running these anywhere near capacity. See how little they're popping out? So at this point, I could build a whole bunch more solid fuel, and I could route the solid fuel up, and we could use it for smelting, and so on. Or I could go on to the next thing. Let's get the logistics markers out first, though. Okay, so save it up.